Hello, happy Sunday. The other day when I was going through and filming a video of one of my boiled books to show how I use them, I happened to have a book that is a few years old. I think I started writing in this one in 2018. It was one of the ones that I had out as a sample at Disney. And of course, just like all of my books, I jump around and I use different ones at different times. And I have them in different rooms and whatever. So I happened to pull this one out of a stack I had in my other studio because I am about to start filming a writing class. I almost said poetry class. It is poetry. There is a lot of poetry in it, but I also want it to extend into other creative writing. So there is something in this book in particular that pertains to that. And so anyways, I had it right beside my desk. So I started flipping around through it and showing on video what I do in my books, and I realized that there are some awesome faces in this book that are ready to come out. So I thought I would go ahead and pull at least one of them out and share with you how I do that. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing on this one is I didn't finish clipping my thread there, so there we go. Now usually when I start, when I flip through these journals, even right after I make them, I start seeing all of these images, and faces are the ones that I always see and I always want to pull out. And you know, it's a challenge because I just want to keep them all. But what I do is just start with a pencil and kind of sketch out where I saw those. I don't really want the pencil to be a focal part, so sometimes I'll pencil in just like I just did and then erase a little bit. I just want it to kind of have a really light look, and you probably can't see that, I'm just now realizing. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit closer. Let's see if you can see that a little bit better. And then sometimes it is a challenge to see where these are going to, you know, how these are going to develop. And I just, I might see a portion of it, and then I just will kind of wing it the rest of the way, and I think that's pretty good. And if I get quiet, which I most likely will, because I am a solo artist. I think I explained that kind of in another video recently. That was probably towards my blooming artist group. Kind of get in the zone. I don't usually like to work where the image is centrally positioned. I'm usually working off center a little bit, but this is when the image is there, I go with it. So what I see is this kind of like a Mother Earth goddess, and up here, because there's really no plant stains up here. It is stained, but they're not specific or detailed. I think I'm gonna use use this as kind of a little, maybe a little medallion in her hair. And, you know, I fancy myself a potter. That's what I have truly loved and aspired to for the most of my career, starting at a very young age. And I also fancy myself as an art journaling inspirer. And even though I have sold my paintings, I've been very lucky to sell my paintings at art shows and Disney and whatever, especially my mixed media pieces, I don't consider myself a painter. If somebody asks me, what kind of art do you do? You know, the first thing I say is, well, I'm a potter. And then I say I'm a plant-stained paper artist. And then I say I am an art journaling facilitator. And so never, ever, ever do I say that I am a painter. I just, even though I paint and I teach painting classes, I find that I am mostly inspired in my painting by the other mediums that I create with. And so it's very rare that I start a painting. I do intuitive painting. That's obviously, I do that a lot. And I say obviously because so many of you have taken those classes. I do all of that. But as far as, you know, making a really full body of work of painting to sell, I'm looking for my paintbrushes. Yeah, that's not me. And I have new paintbrushes. Look at these. These are all vegan versions of really great watercolor brushes. They're not, I think they, a lot of times they use squirrel and they use, what is the other? I can't even think of it. Okay, anyways. So I really value when I have inspiring surfaces. And that is what my plant stained papers do for me, is inspire these designs. I would have never come up with this type of a painting if I hadn't had these plant stains to inspire and to guide me. And it's so interesting because I do these in pottery, in clay, without any inspiration. It just comes from my head. I'm just so geared to creating in a three-dimensional way using my pottery. And I'm going to put some leaves down here. I don't want them to look like Frankenstein things coming right out of her head, so I'm going to make kind of multiples to show that. And over here, anyways, I just think I think we're all inspired by different things that we gravitate to, and my mind works in a three-dimensional way more than anything. Even when I plan my art journaling classes that are, whether they're online or in person, I go to the three-dimensional realm. And I'm planning a retreat. Yes, you heard me say that. There's actually, I've got tentative dates, but I don't want to announce them yet because I'm still waiting for the venue to confirm. But for those of you that have been wanting some in-person experiences, there will be a nice weekend retreat coming up in the fall here in Florida. anyways, yeah, even when I'm planning those classes, I am thinking in a three-dimensional type of a way, and that's just how I work. Okay, so here you can see I was inspired by these leaves, and then now I'm kind of going over some of those spaces with these little leaves that are kind of stuck in and around. And I went back and I used pencil again because I'm not going to come back and outline, and so I do want a bit of an outline to show, and that's where my pencil comes in. Just trying to get, so some of this watercolor is very saturated, so it's coming out a little darker, and that's what I'm looking for in this part. This is the underneath part, as if, you know, it was behind her neck hair. And I don't want to cover up some of these ferns, so that's why I'm kind of doing it really gently around there. But I am going to actually grow her hair. And as I look at it, I see how I want to grow it a bit. I always get kind of a little paranoid when I'm doing these videos, as I feel like everybody wants to see it fast, and art is not fast. And I do my share of, you know, speeding up film and all that so that people can have a chance to see the bulk of it without, you know, having to devote so much time. But I enjoy longer videos because I enjoy actually the discussion. As an artist, I shouldn't say I don't take lessons from anybody else. I do. I still learn like crazy, but I don't want to copy anybody's work. And so I tend to, if I am watching a tutorial or something like that, I don't work along with it, because what I want my work to look like is something that was influenced or evolved because of somebody, not a copy of it. I know I have, unfortunately, there are colleagues of mine that, you know, their style is not any different than their mentors, and I know that they have their own style if they would just allow themselves to find that instead of mirroring others. I know, that's my soapbox, sorry. Anyways, what I was saying is, as being a student from others, I tend to just watch or listen, and I am a horrible listener. And that's, and it sounds crazy, but that's sometimes why I listen without watching, is because I only want to get what actually resonates with me. And a lot of people tend to feel like when they watch somebody teach that their piece needs to look like what they're seeing, and I have drilled into my students so much, my art drilling students and even my students in pottery and all of that, that no, that's not the purpose. Definitely not the purpose of learning from somebody else. The purpose is to take your style or take what you're learning from others and make it yours. And so so what I'm using is this blending stump, and the blending stump has just a little bit of pencil on it. It's about to get a little bit more, but I just wanted to see this neck. I just kind of wanted to have that neck coming out, and here's the chest in here, and I want to do it without, I felt like I had another one of these. I wanted to do it without too much pencil marks. So sometimes what I'll do is actually take my blending stump and rub right off of the pencil. Now I might go back and add these areas right here that look like they have little hearts in them. Those are actually part of her neck is coming down and kind of cutting in there. So I'm gonna have to, oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I was gonna say I'm gonna have to figure out how to, and then the shoulders are going across there. But they're behind these areas of the ferns are right there. So I'm gonna actually put in some green as if that was, you know, just because there's a design there doesn't mean you have to use that design either. That's one of the things when I do teach this discovery or this intuitive painting with plant stained papers. I do teach that. In fact, one of my friends and students was just writing about, that was one of her most favorite things that she's ever done, is to do this, is to find imagery in the plant stained papers that we did in class. And well, of course I love that. But yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and give her a little bit of shading. So let me go ahead and do her face, her nose though first. I'm really particular about how I do these noses. I don't like noses to stand out. Personal, that's a personal thing. See, I don't want to get rid of these shades right there. I really like those. So the goal is, how can I lightly give her color and yet still not go, you know, not be crazy with, get a palette, not be crazy with the color being so intense. And so I'm really bad at washing my palettes too, so I have to dig down to get a clean one. And I'm gonna give her, one of my favorite colors is this burgundy, or this plum brown for skin. And I want it like completely watery. Completely watery. I just want it to be a blush of color. So you can see I watered it down there. I took some to another well and I watered it there, and then I'm putting some water in here, and I'm going to even water it more. I can always go darker, but lighter is harder, obviously. Okay, so I'm going to go a little darker now as I get down in here. This color in the palette reminds me of the color that wine paints. And I know that not just because of drinking wine, but because when I was at Disney was invited to Food and Wine Festival, the crazy year of being on property for almost over 250 days. I actually painted in my plant stain papers with wine, right? Food and Wine Festival, let's paint with wine. and it's phenomenal. It just doesn't stay this color. Just doesn't stay this color. It's these dark, you know what? It's those dark parts that are still bothering me. Let me go ahead and put some, I know exactly what I'm going to do to fix that. Let me go ahead and get her some skin, some of that plum skin tone up here. I love the green cheeks because this is a Mother Nature. And I love the fact that her cheeks are right like that. Now I'm going to come back and do her eyes in a little bit. But see, my goal, I did say I was going to be quiet, right? And here I'm talking the whole time. My goal is to be subtle and have these images come out in a way that you just don't expect them to. And now remember, I said that because I'm about to do something that's pretty bold. This part, that's too wet right there, so I can't do it. But what I'm going to end up doing is make these dark circles. I have two choices. I can make these dark circles look like a necklace, kind of a choker all the way across her. Or I could take a color, and this is my white, this is a white All Stabilo pencil, and fade it out. So that's the first thing I'm going to try to do. And if that doesn't work, then I can go ahead back. It's helping, right? It's really wet, so that's part of my issue. I think I can do it though. So what the white Stabilo pencil does do is to lighten that background without making it like a white acrylic that actually changes the texture and the intensity of it. It just pops it, fades it back into the background. So what I can do now, and the white Stabilo is water soluble. So actually it will move around with this watercolor when I get it in there. And hopefully what it's going to do is mix in with a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of darker. And then that will fade it into that background a little bit more too. And I'm gonna, this line here is also kind of bothering me too. So it's just a dance. You know, at one point it's a dance as to how do you make this work. And what I don't want to do is dance before it's ready. So what I'm saying is if it's too wet and I put some of those colors on, it's going to be a problem. The other thing is that I'm not crazy about the way her chin is. It's too rounded. So I'm going to, is that wet? I can't tell. I'm going to erase that I put in there and bring her chin down in a scoop a little bit. Repaint right here. Blend that in. Yeah, that's much better. Do you see that? Once that dries, I can blend out the chin line right there. Okay, I love the way these ferns, see these ferns, how they're just covering in her, and she's just this muscular, powerful woman, this Mother Nature, Mother Nature inspired image. And I have some quotes. I had pulled out a quote that I was going to use. It was a Elizabeth Edwards quote that I love, and but now I don't feel like that one is appropriate for this. So my normal thing would be to make a purple-esque diamond up there, or amethyst, whatever. But what I'm going to do, I went off the page so you can't see. What I'm going to do is actually use some earth tones, maybe some orange in there, and make it not so contrasting. Just a little bit of that purple in there. But see how that's the plum purple. Actually, see that one? That's how dark that normally is. And I am not using it that dark. So I'm going to just take a tad of it, a little bit at a time, to go a little darker and darker. It's very wet in there. And I know it looks a little strange because her neck would be coming right down this way, which I might need to kind of angle that a little bit better. No, I don't know. I almost think that's her neck. A little bit wider. Let's erase that. So I just might have to play around with that a little bit. And then her shoulders are going to come out really to here and then drop down. But the fern is there. Same thing over here. So I just have to, you know, not include that. Okay, so kind of feel like it is time to do her lips. I'm taking a Durant Intense pencil and putting it on like a lip liner. This color is fuchsia. It's one of my favorite ways to draw and paint in these journals is with these Durant Intense pencils. I feel like I can get a little bit more control with them in some spaces than my watercolors. Plus the fact I most usually travel, use these, you know, do work in these when I'm traveling, or I was at shows and when I'm at Disney showing, and I wanted her lips to be a little kind of almost not really swollen, but I don't know how you would do that, but they're kind of a little bit not so structured. So I'm gonna let that dry and then do a little. Let me do a little bit. One more little line, actually. There we go. A little puffy. And then with her eyes, I'm gonna now erase this darkness. I know where I'm putting those in. And I'm going to give her blue eyes. Usually I do green eyes. And this would be the iris. And so I color in the iris completely without regard to the pupil that I'm going to put in shortly. And I do that before I even kind of shape the outline of the eyes too. Get those gorgeous eyes. So when that dries, I can put in the pupil and then the rest of the eye. And then I'm taking a little bit more of this, that plum purple, just going over her eyebrows. And see how it got a little thick there? So what I can do, because I use that color in the background, I want to go ahead and just give it some shading and just work that into the forehead there. See how that was lovely? A little bit of shading up there. And then see how I'm kind of like refining the eyebrows by just making a straighter line right there. And then taking some of that color and putting it a little darker than the skin shows. I apologize if you can hear our dog barking. A little color, that little darker than the skin shows in the other parts of the face. Right in there. Just gonna keep going. And so I've got going to be a little bit more intensity, and then I'm going to do that kind of up this left side of her nose just to define. I want a little bit more shading than that. There we go. Just to define that. Again, I'm still waiting for that blue to dry all the way, and I'm also waiting till this area around the eye dries so that I can play around with the other colors I'm going to be adding in. So by making these areas darker, do you see those green cheeks are now starting to pop out? And I want to have a little bit of darkness in through there and a little bit of darkness in through there. It's going to show some lift of her cheeks. Beautiful. I love that. Okay, so now let me go down. Oh, I want to do a little bit on her chin too. It's already rounded there, which is really nice. So I really like that. So I'm still not happy with that space. I feel like this space is not wide enough, so her neck is very skinny. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take one of my other brushes, and I'm actually going to take some of that green off. And some of that space was dark, so the green is really kind of connecting to it, and that's okay because I have my white Stabilo that I can use. So I'm going to take that, and then I'm also going to get one of these little Q-tip kind of things and just rub just a little bit. I don't want to rub too much. Don't want to rub too much. Yeah, so what happens, if you can see this, I've darkened a line right there. I'm going to go ahead and darken that right over there too, which makes it look like, when you see your hair behind your head, of course, behind your neck, it's going to be a little darker because it doesn't have any light showing through it. So that is how that works. And then again, I should wait till this is dry, but we didn't. And by not waiting, I can take care of some of these darker parts that I am still working on. I'm going to come down this edge. It's really easy to get impatient and say, let me just take that color. I keep making it darker and darker. Let me just take that color straight from the palette, or straight from that first well, and you know, you gotta hold off. You can't just dive in, because you're going to regret it when you've got a really dark shade that you can't seem to fix. You can get darker like I am, and sometimes it takes layers and layers. So see, I put a little bit more. You can't really see that, but I'm putting more and more of that darkness in that first well, taking it to the second well, and then my third well is now going to be over here because I put a brown in the other one. Okay, so I'm still pretty dark here. I mean, pretty light. I don't want to go really dark all at once. But I do want the eye of my audience, this is my journal, so besides you guys, nobody really sees this. Unless I have people that snoop in here without me knowing. But I'm the audience. And when I flip back through these, which I do quite a lot, you know, I haven't looked at this one for a little while because I had it in a different stack. And like I said, I was hunting books for my next class I'm filming, and this had the perfect little poem in there for writing example. Yeah. And again up here. And then of her eye. So now I'm starting to put in, you know, just some shadow areas. You've got to decide where your light source is. My light source is coming from this side up at the top here. So, but these are all her, you know, her features are sticking out a little bit. So that's going to be shadowed a bit, and underneath the eyebrow over here is going to be shadowed a little bit, and then along the side of her hair, like that. She's so pretty. Oh my gosh, she's so pretty. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and go back to this orange color that I had, this orangish brown color. Give that a little bit more of some body. And then, yeah, I took that plum purple and put that in there. That's going to be a little too dark. See, right from that first well. So I'm just going to spread that out a little bit. And then her leaves that are around her hair, or are her hair, I'm actually going to come in with this green, it's felt green from my Durant pencil. And I'm not tracing over every line that I did with pencil. But I'm not crazy about the greens that I have in my watercolors that are out on my table and my studio desk here, and I'm, you know, too lazy to go in the drawer behind me, and that horrible, and get the greens that I like. Actually, they have to be, I need to put them on my desk, because if I don't, tend to not reach and lose my momentum. the different shades help to bring some depth and dimension to these. And as you can see, I'm actually extending out a little bit further than what I had penciled in. And that'll just make it look a little bit more defined, I guess. More depth. And again, if I was doing this in clay, that would be, you know, a normal thing for me to do. So somehow this neck, when I went ahead and made it darker, those popped out darker too. So I'm going to have to go in and mess with that a little bit. Let me see if I can. Kind of washed away the white that I was using. So I'm at the end of my, well, almost at the end of the book. So sometimes I have to put in a little, I'm going to have another, let's see, like another book. Let's put that one in, just to raise it up so it's even with the other one. Because remember, these have been boiled. They're not fragile, but they have texture dips. Oh, and I see too, I like maybe this area blended a bit. And I'm going to bring that down a bit. Yeah. She's got a nice plum shade down here. Very pretty. I just have plain water on my brush doing this. So after I drew in with my white water-soluble pencil, I just took some plain water. And you know where else I want to do that? I really like that plum. Let me see if I can, I really like that plum right here. That is not too dark. I'm going to go ahead and give her some, a little bit more depth right there, and in between her breasts right here. So I'm thinking that that's, you know, there's going to be a little bit of darkness. See how bright that came out right there? If I don't want it that bright, I just immediately go and pull those colors away from there. She's really pretty. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can pan out for you a little bit. Look at her. Look at her. Oh my gosh, so happy. So, but she's not done, right? I'm going to go in and take where I had the pencil, the green pencil, just adding a little bit of water. Get that out of the way. And I don't want to smooth it all out because I want those textures to be there. In fact, I think I'm going to need to add some more. And then in here, where I didn't have that first little bit of green, I can add after I put the pencil on there. She's a pretty scrumptious gal there. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of teal in some of these areas. So the leaves are there as the beginnings of those shapes, and then I just kind of come in and looking at each individual leaf, just adding a little bit of a, I always call it a doodle. It's kind of a scribble, actually. There's some movement lines. So you can see the difference between that side, the left side, and the right side up there. I don't want to get too dark with that, so I've got to work fast so that my paint doesn't saturate and get a little darker than I want it to be. Because I'm going straight from my pans on this one. See, that one got a little darker, so now I'm going to come a lot darker over here now. So I'm just gonna kind of play around. I might have to push it onto my palette before I go onto this page, depending on what I mean by pushing it on my palette is I'll pick it up from my paint pan and then just rub it a little bit, kind of like blotting it. I can't even get it from there. And I don't have any water over there where I'm doing this. I just blot it a bit. This also gives it a little bit more of a cohesiveness. I feel like it needed to go a little further down on that one side, so I'm going to have to play around with that. And then I'm taking that original green and just highlighting a little bit more in through there. Those ferns are there, so I don't want to mess too much with that, but I definitely want to have a look that is pretty comprehensive, pretty coordinated on that side with between the leaves and the ferns. Okay, so here now I'm going to get a little darker right near the neck. And then just certain areas a little darker so that they look like they're underneath some overlapping parts. As you can see, I'm doing this very lightly. I have to go back and keep getting more paint because I'm really trying to not go too dark at one time. Very sweet. Ooh, I really like that. Let's see if I can give her some more right there. And then some little curves. You know, once you've got that in there, you can start playing around with just a little bit of added bliss here in her hair. So it doesn't look like she's just so circled out. Usually, when I paint Mother Nature or faces with flowers and leaves and all that, usually I do one eye as a flower, but this one is not for that. Okay, so I like that, and I know I still have her eyes to do, but before I do that, this is mauve, and I'm just going outlining that, and I'm going to take a little bit of an orange, give that a little bit of an outline there, and then with my brush, so see, we're building up layers, and I teach that a lot in when we're doing acrylic painting, and I think people don't realize it works the same in a similar way with watercolors, but you have to give your watercolors time to dry. Okay, now I can look at her eyes, and so I'm taking this, this is a black Al Stabilo. I'm going to sharpen it because the worst thing is to have a smudge with this black. So I usually have it pretty sharp. And I'm put that right in the center of the iris. So I've got a pupil right there, pupil right there. Regardless of what color eyes you give and how funky you want something to be, I always suggest black pupils. Always suggest black pupils. Okay, then I'm going to take my pencil again and put the rest of that eye in with my pencil, because there needs to be some white around that eye. It doesn't have to be much. And then play with the shape. And instead of a black, that black Al Stabilo, I'm going to use this deep purple. Yeah, there it is, deep violet. Again, sharpening it. But I'm using it on the top part and not really on the bottom part of her eye. So the bottom part, is just more, is just pencil. Shade it in there. A little bit of shading underneath there. Pulling that out now into this give it a little bit of understanding of where those shadows hit, little bags, little shadows under her eyes, a little bit. And then on the top, come back in with the purple. And even though I don't want to soften this eyelid line too much, I do want to soften it a little bit. So with this round, this is a number 4 round. I'm going to soften it just a tad, and then I'm going to pull some of it up a bit into that space above the eye, above the eyelid. Now that left side's a little deeper than the right, so I'm taking a little bit of the watercolor and also putting it up there. That's pretty good. Okay, and then this one, this eyelid, or the eyebrow here, I wish was a little bit higher on this side. Let me see if I can fix that. I'll just push it a little bit. Okay, I'm going to let that dry. I didn't really get the arch the same. That's okay. And normally, I'll tell you the trick that I did not do right now. Normally, I work on my left eye before I do my right eye because of being right-handed. And when I put my hand over my right eye, I can see the left, but when I put and that's what I need to do first, so that when I go to the right eye, I don't have to strain. I can do this one first and then move over and have this the same. So I'm just going back in there and pulling out or curving that iris or that pupil a little bit more, and then taking that and just this black stabilo and just going a little bit under those eyes, just like that. I love her. I love her. I love her. I love her. Okay, and I really like her expression, even though her lips are kind of, one's coming up and one's going down a little bit. And I kind of like that look. I'm going to refine that a little bit now that that's all dry. And add a little bit of white in those areas. And I love, this is almost, this would be a pretty, I left her naked, but this would kind of be a really pretty top part of a dress area. I'm going to go ahead and a little bit more white right there. Ugh, she's so pretty. Okay. Okay, so there she is. Is she not? She is so gorgeous. She is so gorgeous. Oh, I'm so thrilled. Okay, so I found this Rachel Carson quote, and I'm going to go ahead and write that just over here, I believe. And beautiful. Those who contemplate the beauty of the earth find reserves of strength that will endure as long as life lasts. Rachel Carson. All right, so now I'm going to put in today's date. What is today? Yep, May 30th. And this book now has something from this year in it. This seems to be a journal that I do a page or two a year in. Oh my gosh. Do you not? I love her. I love her, I love her, I love her. Okay. Wow. Okay, so this is how I get when I work on pages like this. I always talk about my inner muse or your inner muse coming out, unearthing that inner muse. And when I do pages like this, I don't even know how to express it, because the expression is on the page. Even when I saw a face in this page, this layout, this spread of plant-stained elements, I didn't see her face. Her face came as it grew, as it evolved from all of the painting and everything that I did. And so I just invite you to give yourself time and space and openness to let that muse come out. I mean, she's in there, she's in there. And, she's gorgeous. And I don't know, if I didn't have stitches going down her middle, that, she would be a fun piece to put on a card. And it's interesting because I've had people say, well, just redo her on something else, and then you can put her on a card, whatever. They just don't work like that for me. She evolved because she was in this page. She's not in another page. She's only in this page. So that is where she's going to live. Anyways, thanks so much. Enjoy your own journey. Remember, you can find your own boiled books at RachelleEason.com. You can also take Boiled Books, Plant Stained Paper, the grand course, and learn how to create those pages for yourself. Or you can always get pages and journals that I have stitched and go ahead and see who is hiding beneath your plant elements that are on those pages. So, thanks so much. I'll see you later.